Welcome back to another explainer brought to you by Forge College. So if you've been following along, you know we've spent some time looking at the theoretical side of Web3 state management, especially in our previous lesson, state management trade-offs across models. But you know what? Theory doesn't stop a dApp from crashing when a massive wave of users hits it all at once. So today, in From Concepts to Design Decisions, we're taking those high-level abstract ideas and translating them into concrete, actionable architectural choices. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so here's the architectural blueprint we're drafting today. We'll start with EVM versus SVM architecture, then jump into our mental model, city blocks and mailboxes. After that, we'll walk through the account strategy workflow, apply it by designing a marketplace inventory, and finally, wrap up with your architectural checklist.
All right, Section 1, EVM versus SVM architecture, the architectural challenge. Let's take a look at the massive paradigm shift developers run into when jumping from Ethereum to Solana. Now, what's really interesting here is how data is actually stored under the hood. It's a complete 180. Ethereum state acts like this monolithic, centralized contract object. Basically, every single piece of data lives inside one massive, heavy bucket. Solana, on the flip side, uses partitioned accounts. It takes that giant monolith and shatters it into thousands of highly distinct, decentralized little containers. Moving to Section 2, city blocks and mailboxes, the mental model. We really need a good way to visualize this shift, so put on your city planner hat for a second. Think of Ethereum as a single, towering apartment complex with 10,000 residents. Everyone is sharing the exact same hallways, and worse, there is only one mailroom. You can literally imagine the sheer chaos, not to mention the painful gas fees when all 10,000 people try to grab their mail at the exact same time. Solana, though, it's like a sprawling suburban neighborhood. Everyone gets their own private house, their own individual mailbox, and a front door they can lock. Everyone has independent access, which completely eliminates that huge bottleneck in the centralized mailroom. So why does this city metaphor matter? Well, it helps us evaluate 3 core developer dimensions when we're drafting our apps. First up is locality. Are your operations just quick internal updates inside one house, or are you making expensive cross-street calls to the neighbors? Second is access control. Are you forced to rely on a centralized building manager, or are you just handing out individual house keys? And third is cost of movement. Are you paying the literal rent overhead for managing all those separate houses, or are you paying the invisible, brutal cost of concurrency contention when everyone fights over that single apartment mailroom?
Okay, Section 3. The account strategy workflow, drafting the blueprint. It is time to start actually laying the groundwork.
Look, nobody wants to have to rip out the foundation of a digital skyscraper halfway through construction. To avoid those incredibly costly late-stage refactors, you absolutely have to follow these 5 steps in order. Step 1, capture exactly what your app needs to do. Step 2, map those abstract behaviors right to the structural primitives. Step 3, apply specific design rules. Step 4, boldly draft your partition boundaries. Literally tell the system exactly what gets its own house. And finally, step 5, choose who holds the keys and make sure to write down whatever questions you still need to answer. Now this table right here, this is your absolute cheat sheet. You just map your symptoms on the left to the architectural cures on the right. Got high parallel independent updates? Easy, partition them into per entity accounts. Need frequent atomic multi-field changes? You've got to group those into a single account. Expecting a lot of ownership transfers? Make sure the state is account-owned with transferable authority right out of the gate. If you have read-heavy shared configuration, use a shared read-only account. And if it's cost-sensitive with super low updates, favor consolidated storage. Learning to spot these signals will literally save you hundreds of hours of debugging later on. But hey, theory is just theory until we actually build something, right? A beautifully drafted blueprint is totally useless if the roof caves in. So let's put our hard hats on and see how this looks in a real-world scenario. Which brings us to Section 4, designing marketplace inventory, a real-world case study. Let's run our 5-step workflow on a decentralized marketplace. Notice how cleanly this works. We take our marketplace requirements and map them directly to our cheat sheet signals. We need per-item quantities, which means high parallel updates, as sellers tweak their stock all day. We need a global search index, so that's a read-heavy shared configuration. We definitely have ownership transfers for our listings. And for low-latency purchases, we absolutely need atomic multi-field changes, because the money has to move the exact millisecond the item does. So here is the really crucial contrast in how we design this. For the individual items, we aggressively partition them into their own accounts to make sure sellers aren't blocking each other in the marketplace hallway. But When it comes to the purchase flow, we tightly group those operations together, often using short-lived escrow accounts to guarantee atomic settlement. Basically, we make absolutely sure that nobody gets charged for an item they didn't receive, and no seller loses an item without getting paid.
And remember, as a good architect, you never just pack up your tools and leave the job site without writing down your unresolved questions for tomorrow's phase of construction. You have to ask yourself, how exactly are we going to serialize this per-item state? What's our rent model to make sure we aren't paying for dead data? How do we garbage collect inactive listings? What specific signature patterns secure our ownership transfers? And how do we rigorously prevent race conditions during the checkout process?
All right, let's wrap this up with Section 5, your architectural checklist, key takeaways. Let's consolidate everything we've drafted today. I'm serious about this. Print these 3 rules out and literally tape them to your monitor. They are the golden rules for translating EVM logic over to SVM architecture. 1. Match partitioning to parallelism. If things can operate independently, put them in separate accounts to avoid contention. 2. Match grouping to atomicity. If variables have to change together to be valid, group them up. And 3, make ownership explicit. Design your accounts with transferable authorities built in from day one.
Well, we've laid out the entire blueprint, but here is the real question I want you to walk away with. As Web3 adoption scales to millions of daily active users, will those old monolithic architectures even be able to survive? Or is this aggressively partitioned state the only viable future for blockchain infrastructure? Think about how your own dApp would handle that kind of scale. On behalf of Forge College, thank you so much for exploring this with me. If you want to dive even deeper into these architectural primitives, be sure to visit forge.college. Keep building and stay curious.